If you are going through a low point in your life, especially if it's connected to your finances, or maybe you're just tired and you're overwhelmed and you've been doing a lot of praying, but you're not seeing the results yet of what it is that you're praying for, then today I'm going to teach you something I wish someone would have taught me during one of the hardest seasons of my life. And that is sometimes what feels like going backward might be the exact thing that God is using to set you up to actually launch you forward. Now, maybe you've heard messages like this at church, or you've had encouraging pep talks from well meaning friends and family who are just trying to lift you up. So, you know this as a concept, but today I'm actually going to teach you something that you can apply. I'm going to teach you how to not just embrace these low points and get through them with grace and poise like you know that you should. I'm actually going to teach you how to not just embrace these low points, but leverage these low points, these times spent in the valley when you're going through a hard, rocky place in your life. And if you learn and then also apply what I'm going to teach you today, then you're going to be able to get out of these low points faster because you don't want to stay there any longer than you need to, right? I'm going to show you how to turn your low points into opportunities that you can actually capitalize on. And then I'm going to show you how to not just move forward by yourself using your own strength. I'm going to show you how to partner with God so that He can help you soar higher and further than you could ever imagine. So if you are here with me on the live Zoom call strategy session today and you are ready to soar, I want you just to type like a G6 in the chat box for me, and let's get ready to go. So when life goes backward, unmirror my video there. There we go. Flip that around. When life goes backward, like my picture was backward, a lot of people think that it means they're doing the wrong stuff. People think, it means I've made wrong choices in my life. And of course, we all have, right? We've all made wrong choices. But that might not be your root cause. Some people think when life has them going backward that it just means that they've just fallen behind. They're not doing enough. They're not moving fast enough. They're not good enough, smart enough. Some people get a little superstitious and they think I'm being punished for something. I have made wrong choices and now I am being punished. And sometimes people think God just forgot about me. He doesn't hear my prayers. Or he doesn't care. So oftentimes when life is going backwards, people think it's because I have done something wrong. Something's wrong with me. I'm doing something wrong. Things are wrong. God can't hear me. I'm being punished. And then sometimes people will fall into this sort of complacency where they think, maybe this is all life has for me. And doesn't the Bible tell me that I'm just supposed to be content, right? Doesn't Paul talk about just being content in all sorts of circumstances? Well, yes, he does. And that is good advice, except for the times when it's not. So my husband and I used to be so financially stuck, even though we had a great marriage. We were so financially stuck, even though he's an ordained pastor. At the time, we were running tons of ministries in our church. We were working really hard, him in his career and me in the household. We were making good choices. And I used to think, how can two people like us, who followed the program and the rules and God, how can we just be so broke and financially backwards at this point in our lives? Because we weren't kids at this point. We were full grown. And we just felt like we could not adult at the level in which we thought we should be and where we really should have been able to. And it was really hard because I would also look at other people who had followed similar paths, right? Like they went to college and they got careers and they got married, they had kids, the whole program, right? And I knew that they weren't working any harder. I knew that they weren't any smarter. No offense to anybody. But in spite of these things, they were still ahead of us. It seemed like they were so much further ahead. And I used to feel this way until I had this revelation. And it completely changed the way I see the low points in my life because they still come my way for sure. It also completely changed how I respond to these low points in my life and now how I navigate my way through them. So, somebody just say out loud, just say it out, like whisper it to yourself if you have to, but somebody just say out loud, say hindsight. Let me say hindsight. If you can't say it out loud, just put it in the chat or the comments section. Everybody knows the phrase hindsight is 2020, right? You look back at something and you're like, "Oh, that's why. That's the thing," right? Absolutely applicable to this time in my life, to this really, really rough season. I didn't get this revelation that now causes me to completely respond differently, to navigate my way through this completely differently. I didn't get this revelation until after I had gone through this low point. Okay, somebody say after. It wasn't until after we had started making forward progress, after the years of praying finally seemed to come to fruition, after we had gone through the financial stress and the anxiety and the frustration, after all of that had subsided, it wasn't until after we came up out of the low point, out of that valley, that I could like turn back and look and see that God was actually using every single one of these instances for my breakthrough and for my victory. This time when I felt like I was going backwards, it was actually a setup. And so, what I want to do for you today, man, I want to save you years. I want to save you years of fear and doubt and anxiety and guilt and frustration. I want to save you from fights in your marriage. I'll just go ahead and say it. I want to save you from fighting with your spouse. I also want to save you from making really poor short term decisions in the moment based on fear or stress. Okay. I don't want you to have to wait until after you've gotten up out of your hard spot, like I did, to get this, what I'm about to show you today. I mean, like, is it okay with you? And I'm sure it is it okay with you if I just go ahead and save you from unnecessary guilt and unnecessary doubt and regret and heartache? And is it okay with you if I just teach you this leveraged method right now? Just wave at me. I see you. Okay, good. Let's do it. Because, like I said, if you learn and then apply what it is I'm about to teach you, when you go through your low point, or maybe you're going through one right now, man, if you apply this, you're going to come out the other side so victorious, so refined. You're just so ready to conquer. And here's the thing, you're going to actually genuinely thank God after this because you're going to have a different perspective. You're going to thank God for that time that He took you through because you are going to know without a doubt that you wouldn't have been able to level up and do the things that you're now doing, be the person you're now being, if you would not have gone through that low spot and that hard time. So your low points, when you're going through low points, this is for the people who are truly chasing after God. You are a man after God's own heart, or a woman, right? And you are going through low points. It does not necessarily mean that you have made wrong choices. It doesn't mean that you're falling behind. It doesn't mean that you are punished, and it certainly does not mean that God has forgotten about you. Your low points are often the times when God is doing His most significant work in you, and sometimes going backward is the only thing that creates enough space for you to get ready to launch forward. It's like this is God's runway, okay? When a plane takes off, it needs a runway, right? And the bigger the plane, the longer the runway has to be. So if God's got a blessing in store for you, but there isn't enough room for you to take off, He might have to pull you back a bit at first. All right, so there is a scripture that is so true. We're going to go to Proverbs, erase some of this stuff. If you got your Bibles, open up with me to Proverbs 16:9. If you don't have your Bibles, that's fine. Most people don't. If you're driving, just keep driving. Don't open your Bible. Don't open your Bible app. All right. Proverbs 16:9. This one's all about how we make our plans, but God comes in and He intervenes. So a man's heart plans his course, but the Lord directs his steps. That's what that scripture says. How many of you have a plan for your life? If you've got a plan, then just type, I've got a plan in the chat or wave at me. Do you have a plan? Now, how many of you have gone through times when you've got a plan and you're walking it out, but it seems like God had other plans? And you get derailed and you get off course. I have been there, right there with you. Now, John Paul and I had a plan for sure. And that seemed like a pretty good plan, right? Our plan was we were going to finish school, we were going to start our careers, and then we would get married, and then we would buy a house, and then we would build this amazing life together. And we really wanted to do all of those things at a certain level of adulting. Remember how I said earlier that it felt like I just couldn't adult at the level that I knew we should have been able to? Now, this level of adulting was just pay all of our bills on time, pay off all of our debt, right? From college, etc. We wanted to build a savings, we wanted to invest in the future, but we also wanted to have some adventure and some good times in our life too. We wanted experiences, we wanted to travel, and it has always been on our hearts to be generous. We wanted to donate to charities, we wanted to finance church projects as they came across the table. We wanted to also help out our friends and family when they fell on hard times, right? Like somebody's car breaks down and you can just pay the bill. Like, oh, I thought, man, how good that would feel. This was the ideal scenario that I had painted in my mind, and it seemed really reasonable to me, like especially for two college grads, because I wasn't looking for crystal, Maybach, diamonds on my timepiece. I just wanted bills paid, debt free, a little bit extra left over for a shopping trip or two, right? So I had this big plan, this big vision for our life. And really, if you get honest about it, like my big plan was just the standard American dream. But have you ever set a standard for yourself and then realized later that that standard was actually too low? Like, have you ever settled for something and at the time, you don't realize that you were settling? You just thought, well, this is all that there is for me based on everything that I've done. This is all that there's going to be for me in life. But then someone showed you that there could be more. So I believe that the reason why Proverbs 16:9 tells us that we plan our course, but the Lord directs our steps, is because the Lord has bigger, better things for us. So we have free will, right? Because we have free will, then God allows us to make our own plans. But I now realize that when God holds us back for a while, it's His way of telling us, those plans are cute, kid, but you need to raise your standards. I think that we just need to say that out loud to ourselves sometimes when we're going through hard times, is you know what? God's got something better for me. And I just need to raise my standards. When our first son was born, obviously we were so in love with this baby. And John Paul and I were so in love with each other, and we were just going to be this like perfect little family, right? But that event, which just should have been like saturated in joy and peace and all these like textbook Hallmark feelings, that event actually carried a lot of weight. Um, so we had already decided before the baby was born, that I was just going to stay home with the baby. I used to teach elementary school, but that didn't pay very well. So there was zero justification for me to remain in my career and then put the baby in childcare. The salary at the end of all of those expenses was going to be so ridiculously low that I decided I'm just going to stay home. I'm just going to stay home. And my husband's a teacher, full-time teacher. So we're just going to live off of his salary. But when we went down to that single income, surprise, surprise, we couldn't make ends meet. And our lifestyle, you guys, was already really, really modest. Like we had this little 1,000 square foot house, and we both drove used vehicles that we'd been driving forever. We did most of our shopping at thrift stores. We were budgeting for our groceries like we were doing the Dave Ramsey envelope method. And we still couldn't make ends meet, right? Like the rice and beans method just wasn't working for us. But when it's just the two of you, it's one thing. But now we had this little baby, and that was a lot of pressure. And honestly, the hardest part about it, it wasn't just the finances. I think the hardest thing, that it took a lot of honesty for John Paul and I to have a conversation about, this is truly the thing that's gonna be the biggest monkey wrench. Um, was how he and I were running in opposite directions, like all throughout the day, so that at the end of the day, we were completely exhausted. He was the sole income earner, so he was sprinting toward earning all of the income that he could for his family. And he was teaching school during the day, and he had an after school job every day after school, and he would take on jobs during the summer. And then I was trying to keep everything in line and together in the home, right? So he was going in one direction toward income. I was going in the other direction, like managing our household. When we came back together at the end of the day, there wasn't a lot of energy left over for our marriage. Don't type anything in the chat. Don't wave at me, but just acknowledge that. Is that something that you are feeling inside of your marriage right now? Is, you know what? Yeah, the finances stink and all of these other things. But maybe you guys, you get it. I don't need to go into detail. You get it. If you got a twinge in your heart, you know what I'm talking about. And so I can just move on. All right, moving on. So the reason why it was so hard is this phrase, divide and conquer. You guys have heard this phrase, right? Divide and conquer. So it was so hard because we were following that advice. We were dividing, right? So doesn't that mean that we should also be conquering? I mean, he was in his lane and I was in my lane, but it did not feel like we were conquering. It felt like we were failing and things were falling short. And our financial situation got so hairy that we actually had to sell our house so that we wouldn't lose it and move into my parents' basement. Okay, so let me just set this awesome scene for you. We were in our 30s, we had college degrees, we were running ministries. People at our church were looking up to us like we were worth something. We had just had a baby, and now we had to move back in with my parents, right? So words like embarrassment, unworthiness, failure, these were the words that were at the forefront of my mind at the time, how I was describing myself. And I'm telling you all of this, I'm sharing this story with you to show you what the setup could look like for you, because maybe you're going through something similar. Maybe you're not back at home with the rents, right? But maybe you're going through something that is of a similar backwards slide like we went through. So I'm telling you all of this so that when this happens to you, you will recognize it and then you can leverage it in the way in which I'm about to teach you shortly. Okay. So at this point for us, when everything started to fall apart, we had to run back to our parents shortly after becoming parents for ourselves, right? We just became parents ourselves, had to run back to our parents. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel like we were capable adults. At this point in time, I could not see how this point in my life could actually be the turning point. But it was. I'm going to tell you why. Because this point in my life, you guys, it finally drove me to my knees. It finally caused me to cry out to God in just this very honest, earnest, raw, real way that I know if I would have remained comfortable and if I would have just lived my American dream standard, I don't think I ever would have done that. I don't think I ever would have learned how to open myself up fully to God and just give it over fully to God. Because if it wasn't for that really hard valley period that I was going through, I wouldn't have had a reason to. I wouldn't have had a reason to get really real and raw with God. And so it was painful, but it was so purposeful. I want somebody to type after in the chat. I've already said this word. I just want you to type after. I'm going to do it in big old capital letters with my brand new purple marker. It's my brand new marker. I'm really excited about it because I'm kind of a nerd about these types of things. All right, say after. You got it, after. Let me get my camera straight here. There we go. So I already told you earlier that it was after I went through all of this stuff that I received the revelation, but it wasn't without this. Without this, I would not have received the revelation. Okay, so this after is after I cried out to God. It isn't just about going through the hard stuff. Remember, I said this is about partnering with God. This isn't just about you getting yourself through the hard thing, relying on your own strength. Yes, your effort is required, and your energy and your time, and maybe some of your investment, etc., to get yourself out of this. But if you partner with God, like I said, you're going to be able to soar in ways that you can't even imagine. Because it was after I cried out to God, after going through all of this junk, that He began to open up my eyes to completely new ways of seeing things and thinking about things. He began to open up my heart and my mind toward this idea of pursuing entrepreneurship, which, as a person who had only ever known being in school, only ever known being an employee, it was a newer concept to me. Obviously, I knew that people had their own businesses, right? I just didn't know so many of the things, so many of the beautiful things that entrepreneurship could open up for my life. I began learning these concepts called time freedom and wealth building, creative income generation, leveraged partnerships, creative financing. That one's cool. Remember when I told you that God wants you to raise your standard? Before going through this low point, like I told you, all I was looking to receive in life was just the standard American dream. But I realize now that that vision that I had was really small. And I realize now that God absolutely used this low point to change my mind, change my mindset, so that I would start thinking bigger. And it was in that low point that John Paul and I actually stopped running in opposite directions. because this low point, it forced us, got this grip on us, but it forced us to carve out time and sit together and brainstorm together and pray together, hugely important, and problem solve together. And do you know what we discovered during that time of togetherness? We discovered that divide and conquer, it works sometimes for some things, for sure. But it's a pretty poor method of doing most things, the important things. If you want really big results, dividing and conquering might not be the best method for you to follow. Because what we realized is as we were tackling all of these problems and issues together, we actually made so much more progress and covered so much more ground when we tackled these areas of our life together rather than sorting them and separating them out, like putting them in their own little boxes and categories and saying, you take this one and you take this one, and we'll call it staying in our own lane, right? This was when we decided the turning point for us here was we decided we're not going to divide and conquer anymore. Of course, on some things in life, yes, right? But the big things, we're not dividing and we're not conquering anymore. We're not going to place all of the responsibility of bringing in all of the income on just one person's shoulders. And we're not going to place the responsibility of managing the entire household on just one of us. Moving forward, we are going to combine our internal intrinsic assets, like the stuff that we bring to the game, like our knowledge and our skill sets and our passions and our creativity and all of the abilities that we have. We're going to combine our assets collectively as a couple, and we're going to start building together. So from that day forward, we decided to combine and conquer instead of divide and conquer. It might be a pretty good catchphrase. Somebody might want to write that down. I think that's a writer downer. Combine and conquer. It was this new perspective that really led us to building our 7-figure real estate investing business together that we have today. Like, we had hit rock bottom, but it was at the bottom that we found these new methods and these new perspectives. And it was with these new methods and perspectives that allowed us to build this business that we have now that has been such a blessing to our finances and to our freedom and to our opportunities. But it's not just about the business and it's not just about the finances. Okay. Without going through rock bottom, my husband and I wouldn't have the closeness and connectedness that we have with each other today. We wouldn't be so intentional with our children and their education. Like, don't get me going on how my perspective of education has taken a complete 180. Without this rock bottom time, we wouldn't be able to be as generous as we are today. So looking back on it all, I can see clearly now the rain is gone, however that song goes, right? But looking back on it now, I can see clearly that God was working with us and taking our cute little plans, right? Like, we had established our cute little plans and God was like, that's nice. Let me just move you backwards because I'm going to now order your steps to give you a much better outcome than you could have just created for yourself on your own, kiddo. This is like God talking to me. Like, I just picture that God is like a really good father, right? And he's just patting me on the head. Like, that's nice, kiddo. So your low point is the turning point. Let's write that down. The low point is the turning point. The low point is the turning point. So now I have a question for you. So whether you are live on the Zoom strategy session with me today or you're watching this later sometime on YouTube, the question for you is not, is God at work in your story? Because he is. Like I told you earlier, he has not forgotten about you. You are not being punished. He is at work in your story. So the question for you now really is, are you willing to see that the low point is the turning point? Are you willing to see that in your life? And are you willing to stop trying to make your old plan work? And are you ready to start letting God reveal to you the new one, the better one, the one that he's got crafted for you? So if the answer to that is yes, yes, I am willing to just let God give me better, do better, reveal better. All right, then I have 3 very practical steps for you today. So whether you are currently in your low point right now, or you run into one in the future, because we live in a fallen world, so one is around the corner somewhere for you. So if you're not going through a low point right now, you can apply this in the future and you'll be ready for it, okay? There are 3 steps to navigating your low point, your time spent in the valley like a boss. And if you follow these 3 steps, you're going to come out victorious, refined, stronger than ever, like a champion. And this is really the best part of it all, honestly. It's that you will be filled with gratitude rather than resentment, negativity, anger, frustration. You will be filled with gratitude and you will have peace because you will know without a doubt that God is walking you through this valley so that you can climb up to the summit of the mountaintop. Okay? All right. Step number 1. Let's write this one down. Step number 1 to navigating your low point like a boss. Step number 1 is you got to recognize, right? You got to recognize it. Now, I know that it's pretty hard to not recognize when you're going through a low point, like you're all up in it, you're down and dirty. So I'm not saying recognize that you're going through a low point. I mean, recognize what's actually happening, not what it feels like, not what it looks like. I want you to recognize what is going on behind the scenes. So you got to understand that stuff's going on up in God's workshop. Okay. Like he's working on stuff up there for you and you can't see it, but he's up there and he's working for your good. So step 1 is to recognize it. If you are truly a follower of Christ, you are truly doing all you can to live a righteous life and do good and do right, then when a low point comes your way, it is not a punishment. It is not a result of a series of unfortunate events. It's not some cataclysmic thing. It's just really the timing that God is using to reposition you. So here's how you navigate step 1, okay? So step number 1 is you recognize it for what it is, but then there's some things that you need to do and some things that you should not do, okay? Really the first thing to navigating your low point like a boss is after you recognize it, you then must refuse to throw yourself a pity party. Don't fall into the woe is me trap. Stop talking to your friends and your family about your troubles and your problems. You see, the enemy actually really wants you to dwell on these negative circumstances, so don't do that. When you do this, when you dwell in the valley, you keep yourself trapped in the valley and you are stuck in this low point for much longer than you should be. So instead, just tell yourself the truth. Recognize that your low point is just your setup for a level up. Okay. Say this out loud to yourself. Say this out loud to your spouse. Say this out loud to your friends and your family who won't think you're crazy. Write this down in your journal, write it on a piece of paper, and tape it to your mirror. God is setting me up for a level up. That's all this is. Step one is so vital for your victory for two reasons. All right. Number one, if you're not aware of something, how can you navigate your way through it if you're not aware of it, right? If you're not aware of it, it will control you instead of you controlling it. Okay. The second reason why this is so vital for your victory is because once you are aware of it, how you respond to it, how you handle it, what you believe about it, this is going to set the course for you for how much success you meet on the other side and also for how long you stay in the low point. So, something that I learned recently was that, did you know the Israelites were actually only supposed to stay in the desert for a few days? Type it in the chat. Do you know how long they were actually wandering through the wilderness? 40 years, right? Yes. Okay. So, why did the Israelites wander in the wilderness for 40 years? I learned recently that their journey from like just outside of Egypt to the land of Canaan, which I guess is where the promised land was. All right, Bible scholars, feel free to just elaborate in the chat or in the comment section if you want to just give us the whole litany of this journey, give us the history. I would love that. But that whole journey from leaving Egypt to landing in the promised land of Canaan, it was only supposed to take less than 2 weeks, but they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. And so the lesson that I learned, this was a message that was recently taught. The reason why is because of how poorly they responded and how they kept refusing to acknowledge God. And they were chasing after other things which weren't actually the answer, right? And they just kept grumbling and they just kept complaining. And they actually held themselves up for all that time because they abandoned God's plan. They lost faith, and you do not want to do that. So just go ahead and recognize what your valley point is. It is a setup for your level up. Step number 2 in this process to navigating your low point like a boss, you got to stay vigilant. I don't know if I spelled that word right. Stay vigilant. My spell check say, oh, I think I'm good. You got to have kind of like a situational awareness when you're going through your low point, because stuff is going to come up at you and want to trip you up and like slam you down, right? Even though you're going through the valley, you don't have to get bogged down. You don't have to get tripped up. You don't have to get slowed down, because it is in this time when, even though things are low and you might feel bad about yourself, God's still going to show you favor. God still feels great about you. He's still going to open up doors for you. He's going to bring favor and opportunity your way. But if you are so distracted by your situation, if you're walking around downtrodden, you're going to miss out on this opportunity. Like if you hang your head, your eyes are staring down, maybe you're embarrassed about what it is that you're going through. So you just walk around, eyes down, staring at the floor. You're going to miss. You're going to walk right by that open door that God is trying to guide you through. So, how many of you like a really good underdog story? Okay. This always makes me think of the movie Rudy, which I have never sat through, because when my husband watches this movie, man, by the end of it, he is bawling. And I just don't really care about football movies, although I do love Sean Astin. But how many of you love a good underdog movie, right? Like Rudy, Rudy. You love a good comeback story. Whether it is a true story or it's a fictional story, most of us love underdog stories, comeback stories. Now, have you ever noticed that in all of these stories, whether they are true or fiction, the opportunity, the thing that changes everything, the trajectory of the entire ending, right? That pivotal turning point. When does it arrive? It arrives during the lowest point, not after. It's right when the main character hits rock bottom that the situation changes. The cavalry arrives, like Gandalf and all those Rohan horsemen sweep in from the top of the mountain and just take out all those orcs. Like that's my epic scene. Like, woo, like they were rock bottom, right? Now, the same is true for you. This isn't just movie magic, okay? The same is true for you. The thing that is going to change everything, it's going to be right there at rock bottom. So stay vigilant, stay alert, stay curious. Keep your eyes on God rather than on your circumstances, okay? The door is opening, opportunity is coming, but it's up to you to stay vigilant so that you don't miss it. The final step is you got to prepare. Step number 3, prepare yourself. Now, is there anybody on this call with me who sometimes uses this excuse? I just don't have the time. I would love to do that. I would love to have that, but I just don't have the time. The bitter sweet thing about going through a valley season is oftentimes, more often than not, it provides you with a lot of time. Like you get knocked off your square and you get knocked on your butt, and you think to yourself, well, now what? Now what am I supposed to do? I was going to do this and now I'm not. What am I supposed to do with this time now? Well, let me tell you what you should do. Let me tell you what the majority of people who find themselves going through a rough spot don't do, and that's why nothing changes for them. But if you do this, you're going to just knock it out of the park when that opportunity comes, right? And that thing is to prepare. Use this downtime to prepare yourself for what is coming. If you recognize it, if you recognize that this is your setup for a level up, then you need to prepare yourself for that level up. You got to prepare for your blessing, prepare for your increase, because then when it arrives, you'll be ready to receive it. You'll be ready to manage it. You'll be ready to scale it. That's the really leveraged part of it. Instead of scrambling, fumbling, even potentially dropping the ball, missing out completely, squandering it. For me, when I was living with my parents after our son Jack had just been born, everyone else in the house went to work every day, right? Like both my parents were still working, and John Paul was teaching school full time and going to his part-time job. So it was just me and my baby and my chocolate lab, like at home, kicking it by ourselves. And I had a lot of time to kill. But what I did not do, I did not watch TV. I didn't doom scroll on social media, and I didn't even read fiction novels. Instead, I used this time to study. Like I said, God was starting to open me up to the concepts of entrepreneurship. Okay. I cried out to him, and it was after I cried out to him that he gave me that revelation of you could be a business builder. And so I just started studying. I started studying these concepts of entrepreneurship and business building, and we were being directed toward real estate investing, which I felt like I have no business being in the business of real estate investing. I couldn't even keep my house. Yet here we are, 10 years later, nice little portfolio, right? I started going down rabbit trails that connected income generation with biblical principles. This stuff was like so interesting to me. Whatever it is that like lights you up, right? Like fuels your fire. If it is this like good and productive thing, I encourage you to just kind of like let yourself go down a rabbit trail with God. Don't go down some weird rabbit trail without God. Okay. But like this information that I was learning, like it was just blowing my mind and making me see things in a completely different way and giving me so much hope. That is the important thing. Learning this stuff that I never was taught in school or church, it was just giving me so much hope. And I wasn't spending a ton of money on my education at first. I did later. But at first, I was just checking books out from the library, or I was watching free YouTube videos or diving into podcasts. There's so much free education out there for you, just like this live Zoom strategy session. You can watch me on YouTube. You can jump on with me live on Zoom, and it's all free. So, therefore, there is no excuse in the age that we live in to not be prepared. Like, I was reading all those books and I was watching all those videos on real estate, doing all of that, hoping that something would come from it, just hoping, right? And praying. And then something did. A little while later, I had no idea that shortly after diving down this rabbit trail, this opportunity to flip a house would fall in our laps. And that a little while after that, an opportunity to purchase a duplex would just come across our table, right? And if I hadn't been preparing, if I was sitting around watching Netflix instead, we probably would have just passed on those opportunities. Like we would have recognized and understood these are good opportunities for somebody more equipped than us, somebody more prepared for us. Like I feel like if I hadn't been preparing, we would have just told ourselves, well, we don't know how to do that. We don't have the money for that. But because I had been preparing, I knew what to do with these opportunities when they came across our table. I knew how to capitalize on them. This is the leveraged part of it, right? I knew how to capitalize on them instead of just letting them slip through our fingers. Like at this point, because I had been preparing, we knew about partnering with other people. We knew about leveraging other people's assets combined with our own assets. We were learning the skill sets to make it happen. So, whatever your season looks like right now, there's no excuse not to prepare. And there's no reason why, if you prepare, you can't leverage those opportunities when they come your way as well. Like, learn something, develop something, build something, even if it's really small at first. The preparation that you do in the valley is really what sets you up to be able to climb to the mountaintop, right? So the 3 steps: recognize it, stay vigilant, and prepare yourself. If you follow these 3 steps, this is going to be the difference between going through your low point and coming out the other side completely the same, or maybe even worse than when you started, or going through your low point and coming out completely transformed on the other side, like ready to conquer, confident, capable, ready to receive that victory, right? So if you are going through a low point right now, got a little bit of homework for you in the comments section. I want you to tell me, how are you going to prepare yourself for your victory? So I want you, the first step really is to just have a vision of what is my victory going to look like? Okay, so get that clear. You always want to get your endpoint clear in your mind so that you can work backwards. Now tell me, how are you going to prepare yourself from that for that victory that you visualize in your mind? What is that? Give me a description. What does the victory look like? And then what are the steps that you're going to follow to prepare yourself? Now, do not tell me about your problems. I am not your therapist. All right. I might be your coach, but I'm not your therapist. I'm just kidding. But seriously, don't spill the tea on all of your hardships in the comment section below. Please do not do that. We're not dwelling on that. Remember, we're not going to dwell while we are in the valley. In the valley, I want to hear instead about your victory. Tell me about your victory. Tell me about the things that you are going to do to get yourself ready, to get yourself prepared for that victory. Because God is setting you up for a level up. He is directing your steps. You may have lost sight of that mountaintop, but God has not lost sight of it. So He's got your mountaintop destination firmly planted in His mind. So make sure that your mind is on it and you're keeping your eyes on the mountaintop as well. All right. So thank you for everyone who joined me in the live Zoom session today. If you would like to join me on a free Zoom call strategy session in the future, we do these every Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm in Michigan, so we are 11 a.m. Eastern time. And the link to all of that, the information is down in the description below. So the link to the live Zoom sessions is down there in the description. If you ever want to join me in the future, just click that link, sign up, and we will send the Zoom strategy link directly to your inbox. So the reason why you want to join me live on Zoom is, number one, it's free. So you got nothing to lose except maybe an hour with me, right? But the benefit is, if you're watching me on YouTube, you get this teaching. But if you join me on the Zoom call before and then after the teaching, I open up the session to take your questions, provide you with some feedback, just maybe troubleshoot and problem solve a few things with you. So if you're on the Zoom call, you actually get the strategy session. When you watch me on YouTube, you get the teaching, but on the Zoom call is when you actually get that strategy session, and that is the game changer, my friends. So thank you so much for being here with me today. I'll see you guys in the next session. Until then, take care.